Hello, this is Untangled by Olivia. I'm going to show you the tools and supplies that you need to make a beaded crochet necklace. First thing you need are beads. I like to use Toho brand, size 11 beads. The way I count my patterns, instead of counting the individual beads, I go by the weight of the beads. So if you buy Toho brand and you can measure, or you can see it in the packaging, they package it by weight also. You can just get however much you need for the pattern. But if you want to try a different brand, the weight might not be the same. So there's a small chance that if you buy a different brand, that you might need more or you might need less beads than what it says by weight, because the weight might be different. So I would caution, if you're planning on using a different brand, try to get a little more. Go for a little extra so you don't run out of beads, in case the beads are actually heavier than the Toho beads. So other supplies that you'll need, I like to use end caps on my necklaces. Usually I make like a little nub out of thread that attaches to the necklace itself, and then you just put a whole bunch of glue in there, and then you can put your necklace, attach it, and then this end cap has a little loop so you can put your clasp on there. So I like to use these lobster claw clasps and a chain. I like to use the chain because it's easier to clip the lobster claw on the chain rather than this loop down here. Also, it makes your necklace adjustable. So it's within 1.5 inches longer that whoever's wearing the necklace, can adjust. You'll also need some glue to put on the end caps. I like to use E6000. It's a gel glue versus a liquid glue. So usually if you use like the super glue, it's liquid. And the way the adhesive works is if there's no oxygen, it holds. So really you can only use that on things that are smooth surfaces. The beads are not smooth surfaces, so you're probably not going to get much luck with the super glue. That's why I like to use this brand. You can use other brands as long as it's a gel glue. It should work just fine. Other supplies that you'll need, I like to use nylon. This is nylon upholstery thread from Coats and Clark. I prefer this over yarn because nylon it's not water absorbent. So if the necklace gets wet, it doesn't soak up the water. And also, the nice thing about this yarn is if you get the Coats and Clark, it has this nice little anchor. You can just take your thread, pull it tight, and now it's anchored in place. You can put all your beads on this string and it won't move and it won't unravel. So it's nice for storage also. You don't have a whole bunch of extra thread getting tangled together. Regular thread spools have that little notch. Those tend to be not as strong as this anchor. So when you're putting beads on, it can come out very easily, and then you'll lose track of where you are. And that's important for measuring how much beads you need. If you watch my video on how to put beads on the string, you'll find out that this anchor is very useful. As for tools, most important thing is you need a way to put the beads on the string. This is a double pointed, very thin needle. you can actually pass this through the size 11 beads 2 or 3, sometimes 3 times, but you only need to do it once with this project. And then you can actually open this up. It's a very thin wire that has a nice little opening inside, and then it's a nice wide eye for you to put your thread in, close it off, and then you're ready to put beads on. The other important tool is your crochet hook. I like to have 2 sizes. This is a size 0.9 and then a bigger size 1.1. And usually I use the 1.1 when I'm making the little nub that goes into my end caps. And you'll find that about when you watch the video about how to crochet the beads. You're going to need a scissor. I always keep a scissor around because there's times when you might need to cut. Maybe you get a really annoying knot that you can't untie. Or if you make a mistake somewhere on the beads, you can cut it, fix the mistake, and then tie it back together and continue crocheting. Speaking of knots, this is a macrame awl, AWL. It's very sharp and it's also very long, and it gradually gets bigger. It makes it very easy for untying knots. If you've got a really tight knot, you can stick the sharp end into the knot. Once you get it into the knot, you just push it, and because it gets wider at the bottom, it actually opens up the knot, and then it makes it easier to untie. You're going to want to get something with a straight edge. I use this to keep track of where I am in the pattern. If you watch my video on how to read my patterns, you'll see how you actually use that. You're going to need a tape measure. I do all my beading with the metric system because it's easier to make calculations. In fact, with my patterns, you can just look at it and multiply it by 50 because most necklaces are about 50 centimeters is about the average size, and that fits most people. I like to have about 3 of these bead stoppers. It's basically just a spring that you can attach to any string, and once it's clipped on, it does not move. It's really nice for when you have a bunch of beads and you need to take a break. You put your bead stopper on, and the beads will stop from falling off the thread. Last thing is, I like to use these crochet knit markers. You know, when you're crocheting and you want to mark certain spots, maybe if you're counting rows, this is very useful for that. I like to use it as a marker when I'm doing my rounds, because that's basically what you're doing when you're making the necklace. You're just making a coil. You keep going around in circles. Sometimes you need to keep track of where you started, and that's what the markers are used for. Oh, almost forgot. I also have a thimble in my little pack whenever I'm working. The thimble, whenever you're crocheting, sometimes I hit my middle finger a lot, and if you're doing it for a long enough time, it starts to get blisters. If that happens, you can put this thimble on and continue to work, and that should be it. I will see you at the next video. I'll show you how to read my patterns.